This is Kathy Meacham. I'm from the University of Missouri Extension. I'm a field specialist in horticulture, and I'm here today to talk to you about seed starting. And I've got a lot of supplies here, a lot of different things to talk about. I'm going to lower my screen a little so that you probably won't see my face, but you'll be able to see everything that I'm doing with my hands. The first thing I want to talk about, however, is seeds and what a difference there are in certain seeds. So I'm going to show you some lettuce seeds. I'll go ahead and lower this. I'm going to show you some lettuce seeds. And can you see how tiny those are? When a seed is very small like that, you don't plant them very deep. So I'm just going to put in this little plastic cup that I cut the bottom a little bit so that it can drain. I had to use a sharp knife, so you'll want to get help with that. So I'm just going to sprinkle a couple of seeds on there. Put the rest of them back. Whoops. So I put too many in there, but that doesn't matter. I want to show you how you would plant these if you were outside. So now I would just sprinkle a little more soil over the top of it. And there you go. I press it down just a little and I'd water it. Now I don't have any, I don't have a hose in my house, so I'm just giving it a little spray. Now, if you're planting these outside in a container or in the ground, that is the best way to plant lettuce, carrots, spinach. It's what you call self-sow, and that's because it just goes right into the ground instead of starting a seed and getting it to a certain size like this and then putting it in the ground. This you put right into the ground. So next I want to show you the difference. This is a pea seed. Can you see that? Yeah, there we go. See how large that is compared to that lettuce seed? So with a large seed like that, you would plant it a little deeper, about an inch, maybe 2, just depends. Now, all the plants that I've just been talking about, I just push that in there, cover it up, give it a little water. And again, a pea doesn't need to be started like this, but you could, well, for one thing, just to see how the plant grows. And you could transplant it then, but a pea, that's considered a cold crop. Same with the spinach and the lettuce, like I was saying, and those can just go ahead. You could plant those right now outside. Tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers. It's a little too early and cold for that, but I'm going to show you how to start the seed. Another thing I wanted to tell you about the seed, so I'll just recap on that. The smaller seed do not need to be very deep. The larger seed, like the pea, you would plant it a little deeper. And when you first see the leaves coming up, that's called germination. The seed germinates. There's no need to add any fertilizer to the soil. There's no need to, at this time. Inside that seed is everything that plant needs to grow. It's just amazing. It's got all the nutrients it needs. And so when the first 2 leaves come up, those are actually called cotyledons, and they're not really considered leaves, but they're a leaf-like structure. And then when the next 2 leaves come up, those are called your true leaves. And when you see the true leaves, that's when the plant is more stable and ready possibly to be put outside. Okay. Let's see. I've got lots of different seed here. I want to tell you about. You can plant Now this I am going to start something that I'm going to transplant in. So this was just some gluten-free mini donuts. And it's got some holes in the bottom, and you can see I just put regular potting soil in there. Again, it doesn't have any fertilizer added to it. And I am going to plant something that I don't usually plant, but I think it'll be fun, and it's a pumpkin. And these seeds look, they're kind of eye-shaped. Oops, I dropped that one. And what I'm going to do is kind of mound this up. And I'm going, now I could just put one seed in there, but I'm going to put 3. And I'm just going to, again, that's going to need to be, what you can do, what I should have done, is use a pencil, but I'll just use this. Make a little hole there, make a little hole here, and make a little hole here. And I'm going to drop 3 seeds in there. Oops. And it doesn't matter, you know, which way they go in, they just go in. Then I'm going to add a little soil and a little more soil, because I do want those a little bit deeper. When they germinate, when they come up, I'm going to pick the strongest one, and that's the one I'm going to use and plant outside, either in a container or in the ground, in the garden. And when I talk about containers, I'm talking about a much larger container than these. The containers that you could grow tomatoes in and peppers. And I'm going to provide some pictures of those, and they'll be at the end of this presentation. And I'll show you how you need to drill holes in them so that they have good drainage, and the size that I like to use. If any of you know what the cattle mineral tubs are, and if you have any of those, that's a really good tub or container to plant in. It's a great size for tomatoes, peppers, hopefully this pumpkin, and but it can be any container. I'm going to show you, I brought one in, and then I'm going to show you that I usually plant peas in it, but I'm going to plant something else in it today, and I'm going to show you that. Okay, so there's that. Here's another little container that tomatoes came in. So it's already got holes in it, which is great. And since it's a tomato plant, a tomato container, I'm just going to go ahead and plant a tomato in it. I will say that the tomato, you know, our weather has just been really unpredictable, and looking for my tomato seeds. The weather's been very unpredictable, and actually I'm going to change my mind. But here is the tomato seeds. Our weather's been very unpredictable, and so if I start this tomato by seed, it's really going to take a long time for it to get the size I want it, 4 to 6 inches to go outside. And so I'm probably going to buy tomato plants. I start a lot of my plants by seed, but some I just go ahead and go to the store and buy. And actually, I've changed my mind. I am not going to do a tomato in this. I'm going to do cucumbers. And I am going to do those the same way that I did the pumpkin. I'm going to plant 3 of them. And you can see they are, they're that same shape as the pumpkin seed. Maybe you can see. They're the same shape as the pumpkin seed, but I'll raise that a little bit, but smaller. So they don't need to be put as deep into the ground. Push that down a little. And the same thing, I'm going to plant 3 of them, and then the strongest, best looking plant, that's the one I'm going to keep. You can, if you want to, then you see I'm just lightly covering it up. I'm going to add just a little more soil. Looks like there's an acorn, looks like a squirrel brought that in, into my potting soil. Now, you don't have to throw or compost the other 2. You can try to plant those as well, but for your main plant, you want to pick that strongest, best looking plant. Another way that you can start seeds is in egg cartons. So I just tore this apart, and there's the bottom of it. And in here, you know, I think what I'm going to plant in here is some marigold seeds. Marigold is a really pretty little flower that a lot of people plant in their gardens. Some people don't think they smell good, and that they discourage insects from coming into the garden, or pests. Now, this is a bag of marigold seeds that I saved from last year, and I labeled them 2019 marigolds. So I had those growing in my yard, and in the fall and in the winter, they dry up and the seed matures, and I just break that open, and that's all seed. I'm kind of making a mess, but I want you to see this. So that's what I'm going to, and this is another good seed that can just be sown right into the ground. And the same with zinnias. I do the same thing with zinnias. I plant them around the perimeter of my garden, all around my garden, and up and down the rows sometimes too, because I think it's pretty. For one reason, the bumblebees, I'm sorry, not the bumblebees necessarily, the pollinators, the bees, the insects, the beetles really need flowers. They need the pollen and they need the nectar to survive, and they help us pollinate our food. So without pollinators, there's all kinds of pollinators, bats, and the bats don't usually go after the flower seed. So you kind of press that down just a little bit. So you see how I sprinkled that in there, and that's too thick. I did that too thick. You wouldn't need to do it that way. I just want you to be able to see it. Kind of press it down just a little bit. You really wouldn't have to fill these full as I did with the soil either, because I'm going to come back through. And these don't need to be covered much either. I'm going to come back through and cover it up. I'm going to spray it. Now, when you're starting plants by seed indoors, once these seeds germinate, it's important that the seeds receive light. And without good light, and even sometimes artificial light, it's hard to grow seeds indoor. But it can be done. And to start with, I'm going to put these on top of the refrigerator, because they don't need any light right now, but they like warmth to germinate. So on top of the refrigerator is usually a warm place. And then once they germinate, when I was talking about when they get the cotyledons and then they get the first true leaves, that's when they're going to need light. Maybe it'll be warm enough and I'll get to put these out. If not, I'm going to have to try to find the sunniest window I have, and actually the plant will start leaning towards the sun. So then I'll have to turn it so that to try to get it to straighten up. I usually don't start too many plants indoors unless I've got a lighting system set up. I just do I just wait till it warms up and I just do my seeds outside. I wanted to show you these containers that I get lettuce in. And this, we could just act like this is a larger container, or we could act like this is the ground. And so if this was the ground, you know, you'd take a little stick and you'd make a line, if you can see what I'm doing. And then I think I'll do radishes. And again, I'm just trying to show you how it would be if it was in this, the radishes. If we were outside, I wouldn't probably really plant radishes in these, but we'll see how they might do. They're a pretty little seed as well. You can see. So I'm just gonna, again, I'm getting these too thick. You do not need to do this thick. That's kind of a waste of seed, but if it happens, I'll just tamp it down a little. And then I cover it up lightly because that's a small seed. And again, I give it a little moisture. You don't want your seed mixture to dry, and you don't want it dry out, and you don't want it too wet. When I put this lid back on here, that helps keep the moisture in. If it gets too much moisture, you'll see this drops and how it sweats in here, and then all you have to do is lift this off and give it some air. I've got another container that I like to use. Excuse me. I like to use because it's got a hinged lid, so that makes it very easy. But I'm not going to plant anything in that today. What I do want to show you is planting in this larger container. And you see that? So I didn't fill it all the way full because I'm going to put on my gloves. And if you watched my composting show video last week, I showed you some squash that had come up in my garden, or I mean in my compost. So there it is. And what I'm going to do is dig a little hole into that soil I showed you. And then I'm going to gently take this plant out of here. Well, that wasn't too gentle. Gently take this plant out of here. And plant it in this soil. And you see, I plant it pretty deep. And those first two big leaves are really the cotyledons and not really what we call a leaf. We call it, but it is a leaf-like structure. And then if you can see in the middle there's the beginnings of the true leaves. The first two true leaves. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and, I might not do it tonight, but tomorrow it's going to warm up, and I am going to put this outside and see if it will survive. And I have cut the bottom off of a water bottle, and I'm going to put that over this, creating protection and from the cold, from the wind. One of the reasons I planted it down so far is to help protect it from the wind. As it gets bigger, I will probably move it into a larger container or add soil to this one if I decide to leave it here. If it looks like it's going to be really hot one day, I don't want to leave this on here. It could help burn it up. It could heat up so much that it could burn the plant. So I just take it off. But at night, if we have another one of those cool nights, like 30 or 40 degrees, because squash don't really like it that cold, I'm going to cover it up again. If it got too much moisture in here, I can take it off, or I can just release some of it by taking this lid off. There's one more thing I want to show you, and I hope you all will. It's not the normal way that we're starting seed, but oh, it's right here. You know what that is? It's an avocado. So a lot of people, we make guacamole out of this. Some people eat avocado toast. I like to make an avocado omelet. But when you slice this open, which I just did a couple of hours ago, there's a great big seed in there. Look at that. Isn't that something? So you'll need some help with this if you decide to do it. But what you do is you take some toothpicks and you stick toothpicks all the way around it, and then you put it in a little jar of water. Set it on a windowsill, and you watch for the root to come out of the bottom. It's not doing it yet. And then the first cotyledons come in, and then the first true leaves. And let me show you that I have done that. And here is my avocado plant. Now, in this part of the country, I won't get any avocados from it. It has to be outside year-round, like in California or Florida, Mexico. But it's a fun house plant to have. Now, I put the toothpicks in too far and couldn't get them out when I planted it. So don't put it in too far. And I am going to look at this and see if there's any, I don't know. I don't really think this one's going to root, but it might. And I got a fresh one to do. Again, the sooner after you cut your avocado, the fresher the seed, the more likely that it will sprout. And again, you'll see the root coming from the bottom first, and then this happens. This is probably, I did this over the winter, so this is I don't know, maybe 4 months old, and it'll just keep getting bigger and bigger. I believe that's all I have for today. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Your 4-H specialist or your YPA know how to get a hold of me, but I am with the University of Missouri Extension horticulture specialist, and I'm so happy that you have an interest in starting seeds and growing plants. It's an amazing thing. Every year I get just as excited as I did the year before when I start a seed. Again, it's an amazing thing that little seed has everything it needs for a plant to come out of it. So thank you. And there will be some pictures to show you some tips on growing in a container. We've got some pictures to share with you. Picture number 1 is my colleague, Chandra Carey, drilling holes in the mineral containers that you all may have yourself. But anyway, that's a good size to grow tomatoes, peppers, squash in. And she's using a drill. So if you have any of those, or any container that you're using would need drainage. If you need to make the drainage yourself, you'll probably need to get help with the drill. And in a container that size, you'd probably put 8 to 12 holes in it. And you might even put some low around the sides for good drainage. In picture number 2, there is, it's just showing you the soil and how, we fill it almost to the top, 3 or 4 inches, or maybe a little less, 5 inches from the top. The third picture is, you can see where she made the rows for the seed, just like I showed you in that little container. Picture number 4 is just so you can see, the tub size and see the whole tub. And the number 5 is just showing you the rows up close. And number 6 is her very inventive way to protect the plants from the cold and the frost. So she split open, I believe, some plastic bottles, either water bottles or a soda bottle and covered those up, and they survived the cold and the frost. One thing I forgot to mention to you is label everything. So I realized when I got done, it's like, oh, I don't remember what all I planted where. So use on some of those smaller containers, you can use a permanent marker and just write on the side of the container. And in some of those pictures we showed you, Chandra had used plastic spoons. So that's a very good way to label your plants and then date them. That way you know. One other thing I didn't mention is on the seed package, it will say how many days to germination. And so is 7 to 14. And if you date them, then you'll know that, you should be seeing the cotyledons coming up in 7 to 14 days, and you'll be able to keep track of that. The back of the seed packet tells you a lot of information, and so it's always wise to read that. It'll tell you the depth to plant. I talked to you about it, but it'll tell you the depth and when to the best time to plant and things like that. So again, I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I look forward to hearing from you if you've got any questions or if I can help out in any way. Thanks.